The town of Hinton respectfully acknowledges that it is located on Treaty 6 territory in Métis Nation Region Number 4. These are the traditional territories and ancestral lands of Indigenous peoples, including the Plains Cree First Nations, Assiniboine, Winawag, Rocky Mountain First Nations, Stoney, Tsuut'ina, Nakota, Dene Sulin, Salto, Mountain Métis, Michif, and many other communities that continue to enrich the land on which the town of Hinton was established. And with that, I'll call this meeting to order at 4 p.m. Council, any additions or deletions to today's agenda? Seeing none. Councillor Taylor.
Well, I was just wondering if, since the town manager is not here again, do we want to do the mutual performance discussion without a meeting, or do we want to put that off another week?
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. I believe ICO Hanlon is joining us. Ms. Howarth?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, he is joining virtually this evening, so you can go in closed session if you'd like.
Okay, and we can confirm that ICO Hanlon will be part of the meeting until for that. Okay, perfect. Councillor Taylor, anything further?
No.
Ms. Howarth, any additions or deletions?
Nothing from administration, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Howard. With that, I'll entertain a motion. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we adopt the agenda for April, regular council meeting for April 19th, 2022.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? That is passed unanimously. That'll bring us to our council minutes for adoption. Council, any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Councillor LaBerge.
I move that we adopt the minutes for the regular council meeting of April 5th, 2022, and the committee of the whole April 12th, 2022.
Thank you, Councillor LaBerge. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any questions or debate? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? That is also passed unanimously. That'll bring us to our citizens minute with council. Seeing that there is no one here, administration, was there any that requested to be via Zoom?
None.
Okay, thank you, administration. With that, seeing that there are no delegations or presentations, that'll bring us to our first action item for this evening, which is the Yellowhead Regional Waste Management Authority Agreement. Ms. Howarth.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. I'd just like to confirm that ICAO Hanlon has been able to join. A few people are having a hard time logging on through the link. Is him online yet? Okay. If you'd like, we could proceed with 6.2 in your agenda, or we could wait just a couple of minutes. I'm sure that he's.
He has confirmed that he has been struggling to log on and he's currently not on. So if we can move to 6.2, do we have to table this in order to come back to this item and move forward?
I believe you can rearrange your agenda once it's called to it, or once you've adopted your agenda, you can do it in whatever order is convenient for your business.
Thank you, Ms. Howarth. With that, council, could somebody put forward a request for a motion to move 6.2 to 6.1? Councillor LaBerge.
I move that we swap items 6.1 and 6.2 on the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor LaBerge. Council, any debate? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? That's passed unanimously. That'll bring us to our new item 6.1, which is appointments to the Beaver Boardwalk Oversight Committee. Ms. Howard.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels.
On the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor LaBerge. Council, any debate? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? That's passed unanimously.
We're good now? Okay. All right. Thank you. Ms. Way has joined online as well. The author of the report is unable to join us this week, but this is the item came before council in closed session last week, where you had a chance to take a look at the applicants for the environmental representative as well as the youth representative. And Ms. Way, if you have anything else to add, and then I believe we're going to do some voting this evening.
Nothing to add. Thank you.
So I believe, Ms. Dragon, if you're going to proceed, I believe we're doing an online survey if everybody brought their devices. Okay.
Okay, so this will be the time where we do our voting electronically, and then we'll reconvene. Okay, so with that, council, if you can please log on to the link provided by Ms. Davy Campbell, and we'll take a moment for our voting.
Oh, my feeling.
Ms. Howarth, as we await, will administration be prompted when all of us have filled it in, or should I request council to let me know?
Ms. Dragon will let you know
Okay.
when she has all the results in.
Perfect, thank you.
Winner is. Winner of a pair of steak knives is.
Mayor Michaels, through to council, we have the results here. So, yep. So for the youth representative will be Joanne Torres. Note of that for your motion, and the vote for your environment representative is Alice Paquette. Look to
Yep.
council to make those motions now. I believe that Davey can have that up on the screen. Assist.
And with that, council, I'll entertain any questions or motions.
Do we make them together or separate?
Separate. Councillor Taylor,
You want me to make the first one?
yeah, at your discretion.
I'd like to do that, make a motion that council appoint Alice Paquette as the environmental representative to the Beaver Boardwalk Committee over to the Beaver Boardwalk Community Oversight Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, we have a motion on the floor for our first appointment. Any debate, questions? Seeing none, if I could just get Councillor Magoon back on the screen, please. Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? And that's passed unanimously. Council? Councillor Race?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to first off say that Joan's name is spelled wrong. It's Joehn. Good. I'd like him to make the motion that council appoint Joanne Torres as the youth representative to the Beaver Boardwalk Community Oversight Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate or questions? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? And that'll bring us to anything further for this item, council? Seeing none, thank you very much for everyone who put their names forward. And that'll bring us to item 6.2, which is now the Yellowhead Regional Waste Management Authority Agreement. Ms. Howarth.
Thank you, Mayor Michael. Through to council. This item before council, as you know, you've seen a bit of this before. The region, we're transitioning from having the town of Hinton provide the administrative management of the Yellowhead Regional Waste Management Authority over to Yellowhead County, and the agreement that all of the municipalities are addressing at the same time we are here. So I'd like to invite ICAO Hanlon to do a little bit more of a robust introduction and speak to his report, and we can address any questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Howarth. Mr. Mayor, through you to all of council, my apologies that I was not able to get on for 4 o'clock. I am speaking to page 12 of council's agenda package, and appropriately should actually read updated Yellowhead Regional Management Authority agreements. And there are 2 recommendations coming from the interim CAO at this time. The first being that the town of Hinton confirms Yellowhead County as the administrative head of the Yellowhead Regional Waste Management Authority. And the second being the town of Hinton approves the Yellowhead Regional Waste Management Authority and the management agreements as presented and attached to this report. A bit of background, as council is aware, last week at the April 12th Committee of the Whole, the committee reviewed the 2 proposed documents that were forwarded by the Yellowhead Regional Waste Management Authority. The first being the Yellowhead Regional Waste Management Authority Agreement, which is a new agreement, and the second being the an update to the existing management agreement. So I've dated that 2022. The authority has proposed revisions to the current Yellowhead Regional Waste Management Authority Agreement, which are included and is shown in attachment 1, as well as the new management agreement in attachment 2. As well, in attachment 3 is the current management agreement that governs this committee. The revised authority agreement confirms the duties of each authority partner, how new partners are introduced to the authority, the financial obligations and processes of the authority, the need for an administrative head for the authority, as well as the general obligations of the authority. Administratively, we note that the MD of Greenview, that is limited to the Grand Cache area of that county, is currently in the process of becoming a new partner and will sign to the currently proposed agreements. Bottom of that page, the need for an administrative head or lead for the authority is defined in the management agreement, outlining the duties, payment, termination, as well as dispute resolution processes involved with the position. Yellowhead County is being recommended as the new administrative head for the operation and finances of the Regional Waste Management Authority, which is outlined in the management agreement. With this agreement proposing May 1st, 2021 as the start date, that is the assumption of administration lead duties from the town of Hinton to accommodate the town's current interim consultant who has given his notice at the end of April. I can state that Yellowhead County has actually requested that this date be May 16th. And with the agreement of council on these agreements, the consultant has agreed that he would stay in place until May 16th to ensure a strong transition of services. The initial year's payment of $100,000 for the administration of the authority is based on the current rate and will be reviewed after the first year to ensure that it is accurate reflection of the costs incurred by the administrative lead. In discussions with the authority board, it was agreed to work with the proposed set of agreements in the interim and review the need for a waste commission over the coming year. This will allow the authority a chance to review the efficiencies of working with the new management structure prior to finalizing the decision on the possibility of a waste commission in the future. I do understand that during the April 12th Committee of the Whole meeting, council requested details as to the anticipated 2022 financial impact of the town relinquishing the management of the waste authority. Below, administration has tried to provide the most recent 2022 financial accounting year to date in this area. And I will just had a quick meeting before we came together here at 4 o'clock. So we're trying to get the best numbers as we can before council. Perhaps if we look at this annually, it is understood that last year there was revenues of $85,000, and that was for the entire year. And then $5,000 was intended to cover off the financial management services. Excuse me, 5,000 is quarterly. So that would put us just over 100,000 in 2021. The revenues we see here year to date have been prorated for the year, assuming the transition of these services to Yellowhead County. So we do see landfill management services of $21,250 has been forwarded to the town of Hinton, and the financial management services. And if I could, sir, if Ruth is with us, Ruth, the $5,000 is a quarterly payment. Is that correct?
My apologies. I had to disconnect and reconnect. Yes, that is correct.
Thank you, Ruth. Sir, through you to all of council. So we do see the financial management services, the $5,000 is the first quarterly payment for the year. The landfill management services of $21,250 is what is expected for the entire year as the balance of the year transitions over to Yellowhead County. We do see in the expenses, and these we don't believe are entirely accurate, so my apologies to council. Pinecrest Services is representative of the external contract that the town of Hinton has had in place on an interim basis. And he is actually, that is closer to a monthly allocation. And then the annual fees is what is actually paid every year by the county. So I apologize, the expenses are not entirely accurate here. As I mentioned earlier, we do see a gross reduction in revenues of approximately $80,000 between 2021 and 2022. And excuse me, and we do expect that the current costs associated with the payment to the interim consultant will no longer be required after the month of May 2022. There are some financial implications in the report as well. We do see the possibility of a slight operating loss under this model, but again, I'm not confident in those numbers and apologize to council for that. There are some options and alternatives. I'm on page 14 of council's package. The first two are the ones that were presented by myself at the beginning of the report. The second option would be that the council defers adoption of any motions regarding these matters at this time and instructs administration as to what further information be sought prior to returning to council at a future meeting date. Or number three, that council chooses not to pass any motions regarding these matters and communicate this decision to the Yellowhead Regional Waste Management Authority. With that, sir, and the attachments are available, I and my staff are available to answer any questions that council may have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you for that, ICO Hanlon. Councillor Taylor.
I'm just a little unclear on the 30,000 versus the 3,825. The 3,825 is like the fee to Pinecrest Services for the work they did from March to January of this year. The annual fee is for exactly what? Is that to Pinecrest too, or is that somebody else?
Sir, thank you, sir. Through you to Councillor Taylor. As I said, the expense numbers are not entirely correct. So Pinecrest Services does represent and is the town of Hinton's interim manager to the authority. And the 3825 is reflective of a monthly payment to this individual. So it's not correct for us to indicate that's January to March. That more closely resembles a monthly payment to that contractor. The annual fees are what is paid, and in fact, that is not quarterly, but that's what's paid by the town of Hinton to the waste authority as part of our share of costs. And this is why I don't believe it's actually truly reflective of what council wants to consider here tonight. That annual fee is always paid, and it's not part of our administrative support to the authority. It's part of our obligation to pay to the authority annually the $30,000. So my apologies, the expenses are not a good reflection of actual costs at this time. There are costs associated with the authority, but yeah, sorry, it's not entirely clear.
Councillor Taylor?
Well, the follow-up would be, so the management expenses for running this thing seem to be $3,800 a month or $46,000 a year. Yet the number that's quoted in this report is $100,000 per year to manage it. So what's the extra $50,000 for?
Sir, if I could, through you to Councillor Taylor, you are correct. So the current, so the $100,000 amount that has been historically paid, and that did increase just recently by $10,000, but let's stay with 100,000, was all in. So it was the administration of the Yellowhead Regional Waste Authority, and that included our financial end of it. So we provide financial support through financial services and corporate services. So it included the support of financial services in the case of what we see with Pinecrest Services. More recently, it's included the Pinecrest Services amount, which was brought on, as I understand, in 2021, when the authority eyeballed or considered the possibility of moving in the direction of a commission structure. There are additional costs which include one of our staff or two of our staff over in the public works area that provide administrative and professional support to the waste authority, as well as one of the directors here of the town. That's how you kind of come to the entire amount. But the revenue amount is money that has been paid historically to the town of Hinton to provide all of the administrative services to the authority.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council? Any questions, debate, any direction? Councillor Taylor.
I have another question, if that's
Absolutely.
all right. So I guess the question I have is, it almost seems to me that what we're doing is getting rid of a revenue source of $80,000 a year without getting rid of the last year accepted, without getting rid of any costs. So we were generating revenue with no real direct costs until we hired on Pinecrest, and we were working that way for decades. When I was on council from 2013 to 2017, I was under the impression that this land waste facility was well run. So we were able to get our $80,000 a year, manage it with the existing staff. There were no problems that were presented to the council at that time. Yet now we're going to go off that model and sacrifice $80,000 a year worth of revenue with no corresponding reduction in what I can see costs. So that I'm having a little trouble getting my head around that, because that just seems a little confusing to me. But maybe if I could understand more specifics about why we're making this change and what problems has led to this change. Like, what specific problems have led to this change to allow us to walk away from $80,000 worth of revenue? Maybe if I could understand that, I could vote for this. So
I can speak high level regarding the concept behind this. This was a recommendation brought from the 4 CAOs, I want to say about 3 months ago, to the board. where the town of Hinton traditionally has always administered this, and the math is correct. We lose 80,000 in revenue, but now we have the work that our department used to do as the lead person. Now that has opened up. Now that would lead council to the question of, okay, so we have less responsibility to provide a service to 3 other municipalities. So to me, there is cost-saving opportunities that I think we need to discuss with our CEO of saying, when MDAD was here currently doing it, that was on his portfolio. He was leading that. Now there is nobody from the town of Hinton that has any responsibilities pertaining to the administrative support in guiding this this group. So I do agree that there should be some savings, some time allocation that has opened up, but strictly for this, the concept was the changeover at the town of Hinton, and the committee believed that it was better suited for the purpose of stability for the county to allocate somebody to this and for them to do it. And in true partnership, this is something I think from a lens of, you know, for 5 years, it could be the municipality of Jasper providing it. They can come back to the town of Hinton. It could be Yellowhead County has offered to do it right now. But again, though, I do agree that the math now that has taken away X amount of hours of work that our town does not have to do for this, and that could be used for other things. So that I could only leave administration to answer on how they are organizing and reallocating that time.
That's effectively the question.
Yeah.
Because I'm here representing the town of Hinton, not the Waste Authority. I can totally understand the Waste Authority's perspective, but as a town of Hinton councillor, I'm concerned that 80,000 walked out the door and there's no resulting specifics on where we're going to save the costs. And I just want to hear that. And then I could vote for this with some sort of comfort. Otherwise, I just see $80,000 of revenue going away.
Before I go to Councillor Hawes, ICO Hanlon, any inputs on the question of, now that the town of Hinton has freed up this administrative work and we are not getting that revenue, any comments on how we as our community, Hinton administratively, is going to use that time? Is there cost saving? Are they working on other things? Any comments regarding that?
Thank you, sir. Through you to Councillor Taylor, to all of council. It is certainly something we discussed in our meeting this afternoon. I unfortunately don't have the answers for council here tonight. I will just remind council that it is not a pure $80,000 loss in revenue. There was corresponding costs of approximately 45,000 in a contractor. So those costs will not continue. And yes, the revenues are moving to Yellowhead County. I would expect that we could sit down and take a look at how this, what this frees up and allows in this particular infrastructure area in terms of opportunities for our staff. I will say to council, and this is part of the brief discussions I've had with the other CAOs and with the board on this, was something done by the town of Hinton off the corner of 4 or 5 desks in the organization for the most part in the last couple of years. It's not something that we had an individual that 50, 60, 75% of their time was dedicated to this. And so it does free up time with those individuals that were previously involved in this, and we hope to see it free up time in the finance area, probably not till later in 2022 as they continue to work with Yellowhead County to transition this. So I would suggest that administration, that I would be prepared to commit and bring that back to council at a later date as to just what those exact opportunities might be and where we could see the some of those resources utilized for some other priorities here for the town of Hinton.
Thank you, ICO Hanlon. Councillor Taylor, are you good?
No, actually, I was actually kind of expecting a better answer than that today. I'm disappointed with that answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Hawes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess CEO Hanlon mentioned a lot of things that I was going to mention in regards to the benefits to our community, you know, and to a town administration, the fact that it has been off the corner of the desks of so many different people, and that financial part too. So, I mean, granted, yeah, I believe, sure, there's some revenue that we're not gaining. However, I think, you know, weighing for our community, the amount of time that's going to be invested in our community and not taken away from the waste management side of things, I think is going to be a huge benefit to us, and that financial the side of things as well. So even though it may not be financially on the books, I guess, potentially, but I think overall, I think this is a great move for our community and invest more time from our staff towards our own community and not necessarily to the waste management side of things. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council. Councillor Hawes.
I'd like to move that the town of Hinton confirms Yellowwood County as the administrative head of the Yellowhead Regional Waste Management Authority.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council, we have a motion on the floor. I have one question. ICO Hanlon, in order to work out the math, because there seems to be some hesitation on making sense of this, whether we want to call it a transaction, but in the first quarter of 2022, after revenues and expenditures, it seems like there was a loss of $7,500. And then when you allude to $45,000 in contracted services that we will no longer have to pay out, but there's a loss of revenue of $80,000, that leaves about $35,000. So 7,500 times 4 gets a big chunk of that. Is the net loss approximately $35,000 a year by doing this? Any clarity? Any clarity on what this is the net impact to the town?
Thank you, sir, and through you to all of council. And we did meet just here at 3 o'clock, and we were having this discussion around the money component of this, because it's very important to the town of Hinton and certainly top of mind to all of council. Again, this amount to the town of Hinton was increased by $10,000 just last year. And so that did increase from, I believe it was 75,000. So perhaps it's 5,000 here, but it did increase from 75,000. And we understood that was partly to try and compensate for the bringing in of an external consultant we see with Pinecrest Services. And it was also to try and possibly move this towards a commission. And I understand the board's going to reconsider that commission discussion at a later date. The amount of the loss is, it is hard to quantify because so much of this is found in other people's job duties and descriptions. So the Director of Infrastructure Services, one of our public works staff, one of our public works admin positions, and in the finance area. All of this is where this gets distributed. So it's not clearly distinguished, and honestly never has been for the town of Hinton. So in order to give some of the better clarity to those numbers, and just reflecting on our conversation here this afternoon with finance, we would probably want some more time to get it right. And sorry, I've not been involved in this discussion through the last couple of months, and tried to present it as well as we could here tonight. So, but we could commit to that and bring that forward and try to share with council some of the thoughts and ideas that may be available regarding the freeing up of some resources here.
Thank you for that, ICO Hanlon. Would administration be recommending then that we can bring this back for May 3rd with more clear numbers regarding the net impact to our municipality, or is there any urgency needed for this evening?
Well, if I could, sir, through you to all of council, there's a certain degree of urgency. Yellowhead County did pass these documents last Tuesday. I did understand they were going to present and then adopt tonight, but they did proceed with adopting these last Tuesday. The Jasper and Edson, I believe, are looking to pass theirs. My understanding from their CAOs is they'll be passing theirs tonight. So that is what had been hoped for, but I mean, if we wait a week, I don't believe it affects it too much. And perhaps if I could, sir, to the back half of your question, I honestly don't know how much certainty I can give you regarding, we know what the revenues are, but the costs are, as you said, when you run something off the corner of a desk, off of 4 or 5 desks for a decade, it's really hard to quantify what and where those costs are. So we do recognize that there is a revenue loss, but in terms of, we would be speculating as to where the corresponding expenditures are drawn from.
Okay, thank you, ICO Hanlon. Councilor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For me, I would be very uncomfortable voting for anything that would move this ahead tonight. If a citizen were to say to me, talk to me about that $80,000, I couldn't. So I'd like to wait on this.
Thank you, Councilor Race. Councilor Taylor.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I'm against this necessarily. I'm just saying that I haven't had the specifics that I needed to understand the expense side of the equation. All I see is the revenue going in. It sounds like there's a little bit more information that might be provided there.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor. ICO Hanlon, in the efforts of combining the urgency factor and the anticipated target date, I know you had mentioned May 16th, would there be any valuable information that could be provided within a week if we ran a concurrent special meeting with a committee of the whole meeting next week, or would May 3rd be also appropriate? Well, if council does not want to pass this tonight, is 7 days or 14 days administration's recommendation?
I guess through you, sir, to the whole of council, a couple of items I would share on this is, so Yellowhead County, as a partner in good faith, has hired this person, this individual. So they are proceeding based on the understanding that was presented and understood through the board. So I don't know how they may feel in a further delay to this, but this is certainly something that we can take into account going forward. I think administratively, I will share with council the following, and I just believe I must be candid. The CAO that initiated this discussion on behalf of the town of Hinton is no longer with us. The directors that were involved in the operation of this historically are no longer with us. Administratively, current administration has very little information in and around the operations here. I fully understand and respect the requests I'm hearing from council, but it's the nature of running something like this off of the corner of desks without a tremendous amount of oversight, if I'm being candid, for a decade, makes it very difficult to come back with the same specifics I hear council asking for. This was not an identified budget line item in any of our operating budgets. It was an identified revenue item that I do concede we are giving up and returning or turning over to Yellowhead County. But I cannot, in good conscience, promise you that I can give you corresponding detailed GL accounts as to where the corresponding reductions in expenditures will be found, because it just occurred off the corner of people's desks. I apologize. I can't be any clearer than that. And I'm not convinced in 7 or 14 days that I'll be able to provide the clarity that I understand council wants to see.
Thank you, ICO Hanlon. I have Councilor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'll check. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. The one thing I wanted to address, and it's been briefly touched on, is the fact that $45,900 for those Pinecrest services. That, as far as I'm concerned, that's a cash in, cash out, because we're receiving that money, but then it has to be paid to that vendor for the job that they do. That. Just looking at things on the calculator, that leaves us with, $54,100. I've heard the CAO now a number of times mention that, this is being run off of 4 or 5 desks within our town. So I guess at a high level, for myself to be able to support this, what I would need to know is that, for those 4 or 5 directors who are going to have that time freed up, are they going to have, call it $11,000 worth of time over the course of this next year that's going to be freed up to work on other projects? Because again, anytime council initiates projects or brings them forward, that's always a limitation, is the people power, backstage and administration doing the work. So if administration, for myself, can say, yeah, absolutely, you're going to get your money's worth out of that $11,000 per administrator, I'm content with that. That's the information I would need to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council? Councillor Hawes?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess just a question, and you may, to jog my memory, CEO Hanlon, I believe, like, we did have this discussion and see this during the budget process, that we were going to have a reduction of revenue based on the fact that this is the direction that we were going to go, whether it was going to be Yellowhead County doing it or whether it was going to be a commission. Is that not correct? Can you recall, or can you jog my memory?
You're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry, Councillor Hawes, through you to all of council. That is the recollection of my involvement in the mid-January discussions, was that this was anticipated, whether it was going to one of the member communities or whether the possibility of a commission structure and independent or external supports.
So if I may, Mr. Mayor. So I guess this is where I'm struggling. We're at this now point where we've already seen it in the budget. We're already aware of it, didn't question it then. Now all of a sudden we're questioning it. But the fact of the matter is, whether we were going to go, I mean, we've heard a lot, and I'm coming from the commission side or from the board side of things, because it was off 4 desks, there was a struggle, to get reports done, to get information in. There was a bit of a financial delay because we were trying to work on our own financials, plus also working on waste management. This was an opportunity for Yellowhead County to say, look, we can take over the wall and have the staff and the manpower to do that, that we didn't have. So I'm very confident in Councillor Magoon's question as to whether or not we're going to get this back. I'm very confident with the amount of money or time that I've seen our staff having to put towards this, the waste management side of things. I'm very confident we're going to get that money back in that way. It may not be a line item, it may not be revenue, but the work that's going to be done, and the fact of the matter is, Yellowhead County has said we're ready to go. They've made some commitments here. So we didn't question it during the budget process. It was a line item. I remember it being about $80,000. Questioned it then, why is it on there? And this was the reason. The other thing is, if I may, is if we would have went to the commission route, this would be a done deal. We wouldn't be getting this revenue in any way, shape, or form. None of the communities would be getting any revenue from it. So, and that ultimately still may happen. We don't know what the future is in the next 6 to 8 months when we review it again. So I'm confident in moving forward at this time. Those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Councillor LaBerge?
I actually did question it at budget time, and I was told there were no associated costs with it. I was told that we were going to lose $80,000, and there were no costs. There were no people associated, and there were no costs. So at budget time, that's what I was told. So I guess I'm a little confused listening to the discussion tonight that, we're going to need to have a look at this and see maybe there is and maybe there isn't. Because I'm confused, because I did at the right time ask that question. I was told there were no costs. So if that's the answer, then we're just going to lose $80,000. I'm not sure why we did that or why that was our mission, but.
Thank you, Councillor LaBerge. Council, any other questions, comments, debate? Councillor Race.
Thank you, sir. I surely hope I don't regret asking this question. No, really. So when we talk about directors and people working off the side of their desk, and not even directors, maybe managers or just people, is that they devoted 10 hours that month to the landfill, and the landfill would be billed that time, and that's part of that 80,000?
ICAO Hanlon?
Sir, if I could, through you to Councillor Race, to all of council, that's a great question. It was not likely captured in speaking with those recent arrivals, and I do want to just clarify that that much of the work that's been done by the town of Hinton in this area has not been at the director level. It's been amongst our support staff, our public works staff, and so forth. So it's not just at the director level. The director in this case provides oversight. There's some management support, but the majority of the work's done at the front end, and it's not captured or identified. Honestly, I don't believe any one of us could tell you that is Councillor Reyes could tell you how many hours they spent on it in February of 2022. They just know it's a lot of work. I'm coming back to Councillor Haas's comment. It is a lot of work. And with that, and I wanted to maybe just touch on some of the found time. There's been a lot of discussion on this, and I wanted to just maybe distinguish. There's two opportunities here in found time. One is truly found time that's no longer being dedicated to the management of the waste authority, and we can't deny it. That has to be there amongst those staff members whose corner of the desk this was operating on. The other savings that the town will realize is a reduction in overtime. Certainly those front end staff members, there was overtime in and around the operation of the waste management. So there will be a reduction. So when we talk about there's no budgeted line item for cost, the closest thing we have is some of the overtime that was necessary to make this happen over the years. And we should see a corresponding reduction in overtime due to the fact that this isn't being managed any longer by the town of Hinton. I hope that helps.
Yeah. So are you saying the combination of hours by many people make up a large portion of that $80,000?
In the infrastructure, public works, and finance areas, that's what pulls this together. Again, we don't have an individual like I don't wish to mention his name. So for Pinecrest Services, who is a dedicated professional manager under contract on behalf of the town of Hinton, that's principally and primarily all that he does. And he does so at a part-time contract for the town of Hinton. We don't have anybody whose job description states that's what they do. Again, that's the difficulty when you work off the corner of so many desks, that it just gets done, but it's hard to quantify that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reyes. Councillor Taylor.
Councillor McGowan's suggestion is hold some promise, and I like his suggestion. So I don't know if I can say this nicely. But we're saving, 10 to 15 work days per week of a variety of people's time on this side of the organization. Yet there is another side of the organization where some people, external and internal to the organization, are a little uncertain as to how it's getting run. Economic development is what I'm referring to. So we got savings over here, and we got maybe shortage over here. It'd be nice to see how things are going to shake down, other than vague promises. I'd like to see something specific as to how maybe we save something over here, how we're going to use it over there. So otherwise, we're just giving up $80,000 of revenue without anything specific.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. For myself, this ultimately comes down to the question of, sure, let's understand what we as an organization are going to do with the new found time allocation that we are no longer providing. We are contracting out less, $45,000 a year. That was part of the $80,000. That's why it's not just a pure net loss of $80,000. I'm comfortable moving forward unless we want this position and we want to go back to the board and say, we want Hinton to do this completely and be fully responsible for that position. And this is where at a board level, it was deemed that there had been struggles because of it was on the desks of 3-4 people. Now, I do have questions about the math, and I see O'Hanlon spoke to that there were changes from the report. That could still be followed up, but the concept to me still lays, are we okay with Yellowhead County managing this on a contract, and I'm okay with that. That was, I've experienced the challenges from a board level when it was in the hands of Hinton. So I could try that now. So I'll separate the two, and I think we need a follow-up on the math and what our expectations are with this newfound time. And then we work with our ICAO with answers of, okay, well, do we look at saving budget costs? Do we look at a multitude of options in order to continue running our organization with this newfound time? So to me, they're somewhat separate. I'd like to get more clarity, but ultimately, I do want Yellowhead County to manage this temporarily until we figure out what the next step is, whether it's a commission or if it's a different body in the future to manage it. So that's where I'm at, albeit challenging that the numbers aren't perfectly clear. The concept for me still remains that I don't want the town of Hinton to be doing this for the next few years. Council, any further debate, questions, comments? Councilor LeBerge.
Well, and I've heard it twice from people now who sit on that board, and it doesn't sound like the town of Hinton was doing the job. So I guess if you're going to get fired, you're going to get fired. And we were working for that group. If that's the case, great. But I think we do need to have the conversation about what things cost. I don't know. We increased the amount of overtime we expect to pay this year by almost, I don't know, $27,000 in the budget this year. So hopefully we can save some of this. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Bears. I would recommend, if there's an appetite to pass this motion, I would gladly support directing the ICAO to bring a report on the net financial impact to the town of Hinton to a future meeting of council, because to me, that's the element that's missing here. What does this look like from a financial perspective for us as an organization? And that is lacking. So that would be one, but conceptually, like I said, being on the board, the management just did not, as Councilor LeBerge said, maybe work out as well as it was intended in the past few years. So that would be my recommendation. I'll support this motion and look forward to any other motion if there's a follow-up on the financials that we would need from our ICAO. Thank you. Councilor Haas.
Yeah, and if I could just, one more follow-up on that, and this was also a collaboration of all CEOs got together to discuss and looked at each community. It's not that, but they looked at each community as to which of the municipalities are best set up right now to take over the reins. And Yellowhead County not only was identified, but also accepted that. They accepted that responsibility as well, and had the ability that maybe Hinton at this time did not have. So I just wanted to add that this wasn't just something that the board decided, but this was collaboration of the CEOs as well, and was considered by all of them. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Haas. ICO Hanlon, did you have your hand up? Or?
Hey, just, sir, if I could, just in speaking to this first motion, and I do want to just communicate this very clearly for all of council. It is my understanding that the previous CAO to the board, at least at that CAO level, when this matter was discussed, did indicate that the town of Hinton was not interested in continuing to provide administrative support to this group. And I mentioned earlier that Yellowhead County in subsequent discussions has proceeded in good faith on this. I do want to just bring that to the attention, particularly in relation to this first motion. Thank you.
Thank you, ICO Hanlon. Council.
I had a question.
Councilor Taylor.
CAO Hanlon, when was that motion of council made?
ICO Hanlon.
That council is no longer interested in doing this work. You indicated the decision was made, so it has to be a decision of council. When was that decision made?
Sir, if I could, through you to Councillor Taylor, I do not believe there was a motion of council. The previous CAO communicated that to the other CAOs, And I apologize, I'm not familiar with the history on that.
Yeah, that's what I believe is the essence of the problem, is way back when this was done, if it had come to council and said, we're making a major change here, but anyways, go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Hawes?
Just a question here legislatively. I mean, my hope is that this when called to question does pass, but if it doesn't, I have a concern with that. Where do we sit then?
Sir, if I could, through you to Councillor Haas, if this initial motion is defeated and if there's not a substantial change to a subsequent proposed motion, this could not be brought back before council until 6 months had passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council? Seeing no one else, I'll call to question that the town of Hinton confirms Yellowhead, oh, sorry, was there a who put the motion forward? Councillor Hawes, correct? Okay, thank you. That the town of Hinton confirms Yellowhead County as the administrative head of the Yellowhead Regional Waste Management Authority. Council, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried 6-1. Council, any further motions? Councillor Hawes.
I'd like to move that the town of Hinton approves the Yellowhead Regional Waste Management Authority and the management agreements as presented and attached hereto.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any further debate? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor?
Could I see it first, please?
Oh. Miss Davy Campbell. Council, any further debate or questions? Seeing none, I'll call to question that the town of Hinton approves the Yellowhead Regional Waste Management Authority and the management agreement as presented and attached hereto. Council, all those in favor? That's passed unanimously. Council, anything further for this item? Councillor Taylor.
Well, I don't know if I can word this correctly, and maybe I need help, and your worship, you had the wording almost, but I'd like to see that council direct the CAO to bring back the staff savings on this project and how they're going to be utilized for a discussion of council. That was what you described as the missing piece, and I tend to agree with you. Would
you like to make that motion, Councillor Taylor?
I think I just did.
Okay,
but
perfect.
If you can help word it,
Right.
I would sure appreciate that.
Okay.
Please.
Just give Miss Davy Campbell one moment to bring that up.
Because we seem to have a department that could sure use some of those savings. I don't know if it's cost or it's cost/time savings for staff and how they're going to be reconfigured. That council direct the ICO to bring back cost and time savings for staff from the from the elimination of the management agreement back to council, and how those cost and time savings are going to be utilized.
So administration, oh, there we go. 1 moment. If we can just change the ICO to just administration, not to tie it to one specific person. Councillor Taylor, would you be okay with that wording?
I believe that reflects what I wanted to say. Yes, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just seek clarification. Thank you, Ms. Davy Campbell. We can spell that out afterwards, but just as a standalone motion, we know what management agreement we're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Howarth. Councillor Taylor, you're good?
The agreement I'm referring to is the agreement where we, to do the management with Yellowhead County. Is that what that means? Yeah. Okay.
And would you like to speak to that, Councillor Taylor?
No, I think we've talked lots about it.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, we have a motion on the floor. I'll be in support of this. I think the missing piece was understanding the impact it has on this organization financially. Honestly, if a resident were to ask me tomorrow on breaking down the impacts to our organization and the costs, especially based on this report, I just don't have those answers. So this will at least bring it full circle for us to understand what we as an organization have been impacted. So I'll be in support of this. Council? Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to be speaking in favor of the proposed motion. I don't have any interest in directing administration to go and provide answers to questions that have already been responded to. It's already been responded to that this has been a position that should have been likely filled by a hired position, which wasn't because there wasn't budget for it. It was delegated among several staff in the town of Hinton to work on when they had time. It's been functioning that way with the staff who already had full-time permanent positions here, were added extra duties. Here you need to take care of this as well. Now that that's being taken off their plate so that they can better focus on the full-time positions that they already had and were hired for, we're gonna direct administration to go and find out where there's potential cost savings there. Well, I can tell you right now that I can see from what I've heard from the commission and what I can see and what we've been told by many of our upper level administration, that there is no cost savings. They're just going to be better able to focus on their current positions, what they do and what they were hired to do. So I have no appetite to go and send administration on this. I think this is something that we can absorb, and if council's got really big concerns that they don't feel that administrative staff is performing adequately or that they're underworked, then this can be something that can be discussed with the CAO throughout the year and can be addressed in the 2023 budget. As far as this goes, I think administration has better things to do with their time, so I'm not supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. Council, any further debate, questions? Seeing none. I'll call to question that council direct administration to bring back the cost and time savings for staff from the elimination of the WYRWMA management agreement and how the savings will be utilized. If I can just get Councillor Magoon. Council, all those in favor? Opposed? And that is defeated 4-3. Council, any further direction or questions regarding this action item? Seeing none, that'll bring us to 6.3, our Land Acknowledgement Task Committee. CAO Howarth, or acting CAO.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels, through to council. This was an item that the Committee of the Whole had crafted last week with their intention to form a land acknowledgement working committee. We can bring up the ads from last week. For your discussion, you had requested that it did not require a report from administration. I think you were going to talk among yourselves and decide whether you wanted to ratify this direction from last week. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Howarth. Council. Councillor Taylor? Oh.
Councillor Hawes was first.
Oh, Councillor Hawes.
Sorry. Is that the beginning of it, Jen? We just have to remove.
Yes, that's the
we have to remove-
verbatim motion from last week.
You can
Okay.
remove the beginning of
We
it.
have to
just
remove the committee.
the first 4 words. Right.
Council recommend, or going to move that council establish a working committee for the purpose of establishing a land acknowledgement statement and direct administration to establish a draft term of reference to be brought to back to committee of a whole meeting before the end of May 2022.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council, we have a direction on the floor. Any questions, comments? Councillor Taylor?
Well, I'm probably not going to support that, and the reason is that we have an existing committee that could do this. And I know some councillors think that only a council committee can do this kind of work, but I don't believe that. I believe that a citizen on the CF committee is just as capable as a councillor of doing this kind of work. And to think that only a councillor could do this kind of work is not so. But on the other hand, if this committee is, I mean, I like the goals of the committee, and I like what it's going to do, and if it's going to be a quick, get this done quickly and get it out fairly efficiently, then that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a matter of preference as to how it gets done. That's all. It's not that I'm not supporting the doing this and the making the land acknowledgement as good as we possibly can.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, any further questions, debate? If I can just see Councillor Magoon, please. Sorry, just in, there's a way to minimize it so we see part of the screen. Council, anything further? Seeing none, I'll call to question that council will establish a working committee for the purpose of establishing a land acknowledgement statement and direct administration to establish a draft terms of reference to be brought back to a committee of the whole meeting before the end of May 2022. Council, all those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Council, anything further for this item? Seeing none, that'll bring us to our information item for this week. 24 million Canadians give their time through formal and informal types of volunteering, contributing close to 5 billion volunteer hours per year. And volunteers in Hinton mentor our children, support those feeling isolated, beautify our green spaces, and fundraise for our charitable organizations. And volunteers in Hinton have stepped up during COVID-19 pandemic to support families, friends, neighbors, and strangers. And Hinton's volunteers are individuals, families, workers, retirees, community members of all ages and backgrounds. And the collective result of all the work done by our town's volunteers is that Hinton is a more desirable place to live. And door angels, meal deliveries, snow shovelers, board members, donors, recyclers, program helpers, school volunteers, friendly visitors, fundraisers, parade and festival planners, special event coordinators, grant writers, committee members, advocates, community ambassadors, caring neighbors, tutors, errand runners, garbage picker-uppers, pen pals, sport coaches, environmentalists make a true difference. And organizations in Hinton that rely on volunteers include such fundamental organizations as Santa's Anonymous, Royal Canadian Legion, Evergreens Foundation, Resident Care Foundation, Hinton Healthcare Foundation, Victim Services, NeighborLink, Share Shop, SPCA, Spay and Neuter Society, Hinton Mountain Bike Association, Food Bank, Hinton Employment and Learning Places, Bridges, Shelter for Women, Friendship Center, Churches, Good Companions, Community Garden Society, Nordic Center, Search and Rescue. And I, Marcel Michaels, Mayor of Hinton, do hereby proclaim April 24th to the 30th, 2022 as National Volunteer Week and urge my fellow citizens to recognize the crucial role played by volunteers in our community. And I'd like to add that it's been a struggle. We know that many of the volunteers in our community, and we're not unique, it's throughout Alberta and Canada, happen to be the same people. And there's a trend in having difficulty recruiting volunteers. And the onus, I believe, is on those who volunteer to now we have to begin to try harder to get more people to buy into a community, and in a community truly, I believe, is really raised by our volunteers. And if there's still a lack, then perhaps we have to dig deeper to convince people who don't volunteer to show them the benefits of how great it is, and that it's a necessity in our community, and that it actually makes them and their lives more full. So hoping that some of these struggles that organizations, great organizations, some of them that we had mentioned here tonight, are in dire need of more help. So please continue to spread the word and increase our volunteer pool of individuals in our community. And with that, that'll bring us to our reporting for this evening. And I will start on my right with Councillor Taylor.
Nothing to report, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Race.
Nothing to report, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor LaBerge.
I did have the opportunity to attend the HREDC meeting on Thursday. Our partners weren't real happy, but we're going to have a discussion of, what that organization looks like go forward.
Thank you, Councillor LaBerge. Councillor Magoon.
Nothing to report, Your Worship.
Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had a Beaver Boardwalk Community, Citizen Oversight Committee meeting last week. Probably the one thing that's relevant to council that came out of that meeting was we had our preliminary discussion around prioritizing repairs, maintenance, and reconstruction of existing boardwalk. So that's going to form the basis moving forward of recommendations that are going to come back to council from the committee regarding where maintenance dollars, repair dollars, grant funding, any matter of funding should be directed in the opinion of the committee. And that's the only thing I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. Councillor Hawes.
Just a couple of things. This evening at 6 o'clock at our Hinton Library, we're going to be changing over the name of the tech room to the Tom Peterson Room. Well-known person in our community, both to the library, also to the museum as well. So we're going to honor him, and there'll be a small get-together there for those that want to attend. So also want to thank FCSS too. We had our quarterly meeting last week, and they shared with us a lot of great initiatives happening in our community, and the fact that we just got an announcement today of the $100,000 grant of a variety of different organizations in our community that provide services to residents. So congratulations to that. And the youth council meeting coming up on Thursday. So looking forward to that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. For myself, I've had the pleasure to attend EDA. Many of our members from Yellowhead County and the Edson area were there. They did a great job. I forwarded to council earlier today on distributing the key points of the presentations of the sessions that were at EDA. Two key concepts, or a lot of the talk was around the immigration program, Alberta Advantage immigration program, different streams for rural communities that play a bigger part on targeting their needs for immigration on what their shortages are, what your labor shortages are, and just the emerging trends. Again, hydrogen and CO2 capture is a big push in our province to continue. So a lot of presentations pertaining to that. And I know with our strat planning coming up, what do we want to attract? What kind of industry and diversity do we want in our area, whether it's the town of Hinton or Yellowhead County? That was the main things talked about at EDA. I had also the pleasure of attending ASHA. It was a busy 8 days. It just coincidentally were tied one after the other. And the gold medalist, Adam Creek, was a great keynote speaker. Many times we go to these conferences and the keynote speaker is not as great as some other ones. He was fabulous in really focusing on the individual part or role that you have as a team member working within the community. He and four other rowers did they crossed from the Atlantic Ocean over, I think it was a 6-week period, in just little kind of like rowboat slash boat. It was quite great. It did capsize 45 minutes out of Miami, so they did 99% of the journey, but they were saved. No one was injured. But he just really explained how you have to work with one another and the responsibility that you have in order to make your place within that, because even though they were very close friends, it was challenging to live in such a tight place, obviously, for a 6-week period. But that was really great. And obviously the key issues at ASHA continue to be how municipalities handle the growing need for seniors. And in the next 20 years with baby boomers, the increase of 80-year-olds in the year 2027, I believe, is going to go up for a one decade period over 30%. So we'll have essentially approximately 30% more individuals in their 80s. And how are we, as a country, as a province, as a municipality, really tackling that issue? And for me, one of the questions that I had asked at one of the breakout sessions was, there's a focus on, let's say, the Pine Valley Lodges of the world, but again, rural communities keep struggling keeping their seniors within their homes. And there's no model, no partnership with the provincial government that incentivizes developers to build at-grade homes, homes that seniors could live in at an older age, but yet the return on investment for developers isn't building a home without a basement and with just one level. Everything is going vertical. So there's a challenge, and this is not just rural, it's in Calgary and Edmonton. If you drive through, everything is vertical, and those are homes that are just not sufficient for 80-year-olds right now, 70-year-olds, and some 60-year-olds and younger, let alone the 30% increase in the future. And you know, it's sad to say that there still isn't a plan on the part of keeping seniors in their homes. So that to me was a challenge, and all the energy is focused on them going to a facility like Pine Valley. And to me, that's just not a feasible solution. We have to find a way to keep our seniors in our homes. So that was pretty much it for ASHA, and for me, that's everything. And that will bring us to our Chief Administrative Officer reporting. ICO Hanlon.
Thank you, sir. Through you to all of council. Have been working remotely and attempting to stay current on as much as I can over the last week and a half. I would like to just draw council's attention to this Friday and Saturday to the strategic planning session. I look forward to coming back to Hinton and being engaged with the whole of council and to be working on this. Again, just a bit of a reminder, when we set this date, we're not aware of the gala Saturday night. So certainly for those who may be attending that, it is the intention of our facilitator to be done Saturday by noon. And we'll have a good full day on Friday with them as well. So please come prepared. It'll be myself, 2 facilitators, and the whole of council.
Thank you, ICO Hanlon. And I did want to take a quick moment. I didn't watch the meeting from last week. I don't know if it was alluded to, but I do want to take a moment and thank Mr. Hans Van Claveren. I know he spent a lot of time in this community, and he's moving on to Drayton Valley. That he's left. So a big thank you for his time, his effort. His little skating ring at the Maxwell Lake is going to be greatly missed. And we wish him well in his endeavors at Drayton Valley. If he's listening, perhaps he is. Probably not. No. And with that, that'll bring us to our correspondence, council information package number 1. Council, any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Councillor Hawes.
I just have one quick question for administration, and that's in regards to the letter from Evergreens Foundation. Find it interesting that they're looking at an electric shuttle, and it does mention that I think there's some conversation happening, but I'm just curious if there is conversation happening back and forth between administration and Evergreens on this matter.
ICO Hanlon.
Sir, thank you, through you to Councillor Haas, to all of council. In speaking with some of my staff, this actually does go back a fair amount of time. We did receive this letter in February. We subsequently reached out and asked for a little more information from the foundation. They were great in providing that to us last Thursday. And actually just earlier today, we did send a response back. They had narrowed down the possibilities of electric shuttles to 2 options that at that time were working within their existing fundraising and budget, and was very pleased that we were able to confirm one of those as something we would deem suitable and street legal and worthy to operate on certain roads within the town of Hinton. So that has been communicated, and the importance of that is, of course, is everything's about supply chain these days. So they're able to move quickly and get that ordered. We are subsequently following up administratively. We just want to put a few controls on this in terms of, although it's street legal, where we want this sort of vehicle operated. And I believe we're very closely aligned with the foundation on this. I don't believe there's any disagreement, but just so there's no confusion, we're actually preparing a map that indicates roads that we have no issue with this being operated safely on. And of course, conversely, roads that we would not want to see it on, i.e. say Switzer coming up the hill or the highway. And obviously, I don't believe that's their intention either. So we're very close on this. Today, they are in a position where they can order that shuttle, and we will follow up with a map indicating those routes that we would encourage them to operate on throughout the town of Hinton. Thank you.
Thank you, ICO Hanlon. Council? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept this for information. Councillor Haas.
I'd like to move that we accept council information package number 1 for April 13th, 2022, please.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. And I do want to speak to that quickly. Thank you, Councillor Haas, for bringing up that question. And I want to thank administration. And I think a few hours ago, our Director of Protective Services, Mr. DeBodrap, replied from the approach of trying to find a solution on making this work, and it was great. So I do want to thank administration for putting in the effort right away to find solutions for what I believe is an essential service for the Pine Valley Lodge, and giving them the flexibility to drive around their seniors to 2 places. So it was great to see the tone and the approach, and I look forward to a positive, mutually beneficial decision coming in the near future. Councillor Taylor.
Oh, I was just prematurely going to vote. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any further comments or debate? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? That's passed unanimously. That'll bring us to our notices of motion. Council, are there any? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to go into closed session. Councillor Taylor.
I move we go into closed session.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, all those in favor? That's passed unanimously. Thank you.
Do I just stay in this session?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're not going there? Are we going to the other room or no?
I can.
Can we? Just, yeah, it's weird to talk. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.